In Sprain in the membrane. The Lamb As Effigy. Let's do it. Before we continue on, like and subscribe, you bitch. Hit that bell. Get notified, you bitch. Sprain are an experimental rock quartet hailing from Los Angeles, California. They initially started off in 2018 as a collaboration between vocalist slash guitarist, I think, Alex Kent, and bassist April Gerloff. With a personnel change came a change in sonic direction too. With this album here, Sprain impressively manages to run a gamut of experimental left-field strands of underground rock music. They include the likes of post-rock, noise rock, post-hardcore, art rock, even drone. For context, I'm tempted to compare them, especially Kent, to prominent vocalists within the underground rock sphere. Artists like David Yao of Jesus Lizard and Scratch Acid fame, Alexis Marshall of Daughters. Even the manic delivery of Nick Cave shows up in pockets here. The psychotic stream of consciousness style is also very much reminding me of a newer band in this same vein. That would be Chat Pile. Check them out. The most baffling part is that they pull it all off like a band that has been at it for multiple decades, not just starting to find their footing. The opener, Man Proposes, God Disposes, kicks off proceedings with a bang. I remember listening to this thing as a lead single and very much getting an Oxbow vibe off the very artful experimental post-hardcore that band dabbles in, except much more cacophonous here. Wordy poetry stumbles on top of writhing bass and brittle guitar noise. The track moves through various iterations of the same noisy formula, trying to see how many different ways it can abuse a guitar and an amp. This includes a brick wall of guitar and drums towards the final leg, which is, as the kids would say, giving swans. The imagery in the lyrics seems as if it's trying to evoke scenes from a blockbuster psychological horror film by A24 or something. It's overwhelming, sets the tone, and sits very nicely against the following reiterations. Lyrically, I'm getting the sense that this track is acknowledging how history repeats itself. The political landscape never really changes, just adapts itself to placate and suit the prevalent sensitivities of the zeitgeist. We get more beatdowns of bricked out, sludgy guitar noise, complemented by these very frail, Slint-esque guitars that seem to float in their own malaise. The band works another wall of noise into the cut before launching off into a total groove and energy switch. Tense strings quiver over shuffling toms and sour guitar before it all peters out and makes room for the following, Privilege of Being. Amazing transition for a start, might I just say. This one is a harrowing, multifaceted, dark ambient piece, complete with blasts of industrial tone, creaking atmosphere, spectral effects, buzzing drones, moaning vocals, what sounds like someone half blowing into a recorder. I know I'm doing a lot of describing, but I'm really just trying to paint the scene for you. It's an overwhelming nightmarescape that traps you in a foreboding dystopia. Even as these gorgeous weepy strings take over the track, there's still an element of that unease lurking in the background. And speaking of unease, the track Margin for Error is a 24-minute patience-testing drone piece. Bit of post-rock in there too. Bright liturgical organs pile on top of each other and ring out for what seems like an eternity. Cymbals create a bit of white noise and mask what would otherwise become a very tedious progression. Slowly but surely, the sonic palette is increased with distant, screeching strings. These various elements are ushered in and out of the track in order to very secretively alter the progression, always keeping things feeling subconsciously fresh and as if they're in motion. Meanwhile, as these organs are becoming enriched by extra layers, restless jazz fills and guitar noise are entering the fold. Suddenly, a painting of this track's full sonic spectrum is coming into fruition. Kent's vocals are almost another instrument on this one too. He weeps and croons his way through a very lengthy verse, taking his time to let the anxiety build. The second half of this track feels very much like a slow ascent to eternal bliss. The density of the mix increases, the volume knobs get adjusted, it's time to transcend. It's absolutely mind-expanding. It really feels like a spiritual workout. The commercial Nude almost feels like an interlude by comparison. It's a very bipolar piece of post-rock with the first minute consisting of a glitchy guitar experiment, quickly followed by slams of discordant piano and burning guitar. I sound fucking insane saying this shit. This is literally what's happening in the song. The rest of the track continues on with some peaceful neo-folk, acting as a contrast to the searing feedback and incessant pounding drums and guitar in the second half. Not exactly as exciting of a moment as it believes itself to be, but it does lead into a chilly outro laced with ghostly synths and steady piano chords. Yeah, this isn't my favorite structure on the album, yet I do appreciate that the band continuously changes things up and adds juxtaposition to these arcs. It keeps things from getting too stale to be even somewhat enjoyed. Yum yum. The Reclining Nude is the closest this album comes to a piano ballad. The emphasis really is on the keys as they hammer out a very glamorous sequence of chords and embellishments. The now ubiquitous noise seems to just simply be playing the role of an extra. Okay, that's not entirely true. There are moments of blissfully suffocating guitar and more jazzy drum freakouts like from the earlier track Margin for Error, but they are very quickly moved on from as the dreary piano returns. Almost like it's trying to break out of this very depressive cycle, but every time that it does attempt to do so, it just gets sucked right back into it. It sticks around for a while too, as snare beatings are interspersed suddenly and intermittently, keeping the listener guessing. It's like a game of cat and mouse. Yet another bizarre experiment with long-form song structure that manages to pay off and feel super gratifying. Loving the very unhinged art rock passage in the outro too. We Think So Ill of You blows my fucking mind every time that I listen to it. It's just so headache-inducing in the best way possible. The self-loathing in the lyrics combined with the full-throttle noise rock dirge that the music is offering just scratches a certain itch in my brain. The climax of this song is absolutely harrowing as well. Kent has a total meltdown about a hypothetical "this is your life" scenario, where his every sin is being watched and judged by everyone in his life who he's met. The host says, "I now present to you an elaborate choreography of failure. Ha! 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 Watch! 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 Shame on you!" And if that wasn't nightmarish enough, this procession of piercing feedback and guitar drone completely surrounds his vocals and exacerbates this problem. It sounds like a swarm of hornets conglomerating very tightly around my head, and I'm just being stung repeatedly and rapidly. Horrifying. Handily one of my favorites on the album. The closing track, I'll be honest, does not do a lot for me. At least not in comparison to the rest of this totally insane piece of work. The extended periods of silence that are worked into the midpoint of this thing just get sort of tiresome. Even with the sudden bursts of what sounds like grinding machinery malfunctioning at full volume, it feels more like a gimmick rather than a well thought out idea. The surrounding passages and progressions are fine, but again, not really sticking out to me when I compare to the other, 7 tracks here. It's impressionistic, but it feels more like the band is trying to pad out space a lot of the time, rather than push their sound forward. Though I do enjoy Kent's little breakdown that gets acted out using the space in the studio, and I think lyrically the song is quite compelling too. It resolves quite nicely with some operatic singing and jangling piano licks. It's still a feat, despite my reservations. To finish this off, I will say this. This thing is remarkable. Quite possibly one of the most stirring, unsettling, creative, hair-raising albums I've listened to in a while. This thing is gargantuan, but doesn't really get lost in its own ambitions at all. It encapsulates the complexities of the human condition with so much vigor and perception, it's hard not to see this album as an artistic feat of some sort. Even when I'm underwhelmed by an idea, it's only because the rest of what I'm hearing here goes so above and beyond that anything that feels like less than that is going to seem like less than, if that makes sense. This is a massive recommendation from me. If this review has intrigued you at all, please take the time to sit down with this thing and digest it. Do it in multiple sittings if you have to. Believe me, this thing is not going anywhere. Giving this thing a 9.0 out of 10. Ooh-wee. This has been a fairly lengthy one, so I'm going to keep it fairly simple. I'm just going to reiterate. You need to like and subscribe. And when you subscribe, you need to hit that bell icon as well. Comment, make a fuss. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm a cretin. Tell me I'm a fucking charlatan. God, this album is fucked. It's insane. So good. Hubba-gubba-bubba-boo-boo. Have a good day. Sleep, eat, drink lots of beer. That's official health advice. That's a joke. You should drink water. Drink it. Okay, that's the last burp for the video. And this is the end of the video. I lied. So embarrassed. Bye!